Well, hello everyone. I think it's getting to lunchtime.
Yeah, getting hungry.
Yeah, so let's get it quickly but productive. Um, Hello everyone. I'm Ray Lee from Heroad Investments. I'm today's moderator. Heroad Investment, we are a Shenzhen, mainland China-based impact investment company. We are focusing on service technologies and brands such as service robots. We are 100% from local and mainland China. We haven't got any portfolios overseas. And today we have the privilege to invite two speakers, which they have very experienced international and overseas investment experience. They are from, we have Mr. He Jie from Global Brain, and we also have Akio from Headline VC. Today's topic, I would like to break the discussion into several keywords. The first keyword is the investment opportunities. So the first question I throw to Akio. From your point of view, because you are a global venture capital, and but nowadays, I think Japan market is getting hit up. A lot of investment and capital, and also for me, last week I was in Japan for the sushi tech. Oh, sorry to mention the food. Yeah, but that was really amazing. You can see the dynamic and ecosystem is going on in Japan, especially for the startups and also the governments. They are kind of supporting this event very strongly. So could you please share some of your insight or view regarding to the investment opportunities in Japan, please? Thank you.
So I just want to actually check with the audience. Who here in the audience has been to Japan in the last 12 months? Oh, good. All right. So I have actually interesting story to share with you. So this was about 6 months ago. I had to go to Tokyo's driver's office to renew my driver's license. And told me, a lot of my friends told me, oh, Akio, just go in. First thing in the morning when it opens, you'll be out of there in 30 minutes. I thought, oh, okay, that's quick. So I went there. And when I arrived there at 8, there were already like 30 or 40 people in front of me. And they were actually in one big group. And they were actually recent, I think, Chinese people who recently moved to Japan. There are so many of them in front of me getting their driver's license. So as a result, I didn't get out of there for about 6 hours. But one thing one thing after COVID, one of the interesting things I actually discovered is that some of the entrepreneurs I used to know in Shanghai and Beijing, somehow they ended up in Tokyo during COVID, and they decided to stay. And also some of the investors I used to know in China, they're actually in Tokyo, and not in every sector. Obviously, if they're doing something closer to domestic market or manufacturing tech, they're still in Shenzhen. But like a lot of Web3 entrepreneurs are now based in Japan. So we're actually starting to see a different kind of people arriving in Japan. Previously, I think people only went to Japan for food and real estate, and that's the first wave. But now we have people with tech and the VC background coming to Japan. And I think one of the themes, I think that was probably covered in Sushi Tech, is that Japan is now emerging as a hot tech investment market. Just a little bit surprising, right? Because Japan's been around, the Japanese technology companies have been around for so long, but I think for the last 20 years or 15 years, we've been eclipsed by China and markets like India and Southeast Asia. But now there's enough momentum both from private and public sector to actually boost Japan's tech ecosystem. And I can talk about more of the context a little bit later, but I think that's the big theme we're starting to see emerge in Japan.
Yes, thank you. And how about you, Mr. He? I know you are a Japanese VC, but you are focusing on Chinese market. You are focusing on Chinese portfolio. And how do you see currently the opportunity in China and the China linked with Japan market?
Okay, yeah. First, I feel very pleasure to join this session, and very pleasure to join, especially with Mr. Tanaka. Okay. Akio-san is a pioneer in global investment from the point of view of Japan. Yeah, I think I remember that when I joined this industry like 10 years ago, Tanaka-san is already a very famous venture capitalist. Yeah. Some more introduction regarding to the Global Brain. Global Brain is Tokyo-based venture capital fund. We've been founded for over 25 years, and we have global office in Asia, in Europe, in US. So basically, we fundraise the money from Japan financial institutions, Japan big corporations, and we put about 60% of the money in Japan market and about 40% in overseas market. I personally oversee the Greater China market, which means the China mainland, Hong Kong, and Taiwan. Yeah. And actually, I see, to be very honest, there is a decline of the US dollar funds investing into China. That's quite obvious. We see those very active funds getting very quiet, especially for those funds originated from US. And I can also see some new players in this market. For example, for the funds from Middle East, the funds from some part of Europe, especially for the luxury industries. Yep. Yeah, I don't want to name out the fund, but yeah. So we got new players into this market. In terms of the Japanese fund, Japan gets quite influenced from the policy of US, to be very honest. But Japan has its very individual considerations and its stance in investing into the markets outside of Japan. So in our case, Global Brain, we have our flagship fund, which means we raise the money from LPs, and we do the pure financial investment. So we got investment into China mainland through our flagship fund. That's one thing. And there is another, a need from the other funds that we manage. One special point of Global Brain is we manage about 20 CVCs of the Japan big corporations. There are some really good names, and some of them have good business operation presence in China market, and they know the potential here. They have earned good money here, and they want to keep their market presence here in China. I mean in mainland Hong Kong and Taiwan. So that's another main driver that we keep investing into this market.
Right. And what kind of sectors you are focusing on currently in China? Any changes, during this year?
Yeah.
Shift. Yeah.
Yes, I have a. Yeah, there are some examples. There is a example back to 2017. There was a Chinese startup called Mobike, and yeah, it's a share riding company and a share bicycle company. They joined the IVS, Infinity Venture Summit, And at that time, when I was serving in another company called Line Corporation, and we were so attracted, and we decided to build up a joint ventures with Mobike. So that's a very good example of the previous stage of China innovation, which means the business model innovation. But since that, especially after the COVID-19, the things has been changed a lot. For now, we focus on two fields. One is so-called deep tech, which means the deep tech that China companies or the China Research Institute, they did the industry. For example, service robot is one of them. And another thing is the VR AR. Also, the things related to VR AR, like the spatial computing, like the digital twin. So in those fields, we have our portfolios in those industries, and we help them to enter the global market. So that's one thing. And there's another field that we feel very interested in is the field of help our CVC, the big Japanese corporation, to expand their market share in Greater China market. So yeah, those two fields. Yeah.
Yes. Right. Let's move to the second keyword. I would say suggestions. As you guys know, Japan market is become more and more attractive to international or companies from China. So from your point of view, Akio, what kind of factors or elements they should have to become successful in Japan market? Any suggestion for international Asian companies?
We have actually brought several overseas companies to Japan previously. For example, like actually from mainland China, in 2010, we brought the first social game company from China to Japan. And there was a time, Japanese version of Facebook called Mixi used to have a gaming platform like Facebook did way back. And we brought a gaming company from China, and they actually had a farming game. And their farming game, actually, Yangguan Nongchang, became the first successful social game in Japan. And in fact, on that platform, for the next 4 years, they generated the most revenue. So during that time, I think I learned a few lessons. First of all, just like service robots and others, there are so many things China is way ahead of, not just Japan, but many countries. Like maybe when you're near China, you take it for granted because you see it everywhere. But those ordinary things for you might be already ahead of rest of the world. So if you can actually take those elements to Japan, there's a potential time to market advantage, because the local companies maybe still haven't developed the same kind of games or same kind of robots or whatever. So you have some time advantage. But obviously, there's so many good technologies, good companies, but not all of them make it to Japan successfully. And I think there are some important factors. And I think, I'm actually a very lazy person. If I'm going to have a fight, I want to have a huge advantage. I don't want to fight fair fight. I want to have a fight where I have some built-in advantage. And one of the advantage, I think, for entrepreneur entering Japan is to have some inside access. So for that Chinese game company who made it big in Japan, they had a special access. First of all, we are their partner, but we're not just their partner. We work directly with the platform. So they didn't just enter as another game. We were directly connected to the platform operator. So when our game launched, it was such a big success. And this is before AWS existed in Japan. So we actually ran out of servers around midnight. We cannot accept any more users because it's going to, servers will just crash. So we call the CTO of the game platform and ask them, can we borrow 50 of your servers? And, we negotiated, and in the end, they gave us extra capacity. So these are kind of an advantage. This is unfair fight this company was fighting because we had inside access. And I think these are the kind of things that I think you need to think about. Just because you have better technology, that doesn't mean you can always win in Japan. But you have to figure out your kind of entry point. There's many ways. Working with us is one. Maybe working with Global Brain is another. But there's also other potential partners you can find in Japan who can help you navigate and do this kind of tricky negotiations on your behalf. So that's one thing. But I also learned another interesting lessons, which is don't always listen to your local partner's advice all the time. And one interesting episode is that this farming game was localized entirely in China, in Beijing. And apparently the translator wasn't even Japanese, it was a Korean guy who was living in Beijing. So when I saw the beta version, I realized pretty much every text was wrong. It was like very strange Japanese. And so initially my recommendation was, let's wait for a couple of weeks. I can help you fix all the translations. And they said, well, we don't have enough time to find translators. I said, that's fine. I'll do the translation myself. So give me all the text file. I'll do it over the weekend. So we were asking them to wait the launch. But the founder said, no, Akio, the platform is launching now. If you miss this entry point, we're not going to have the second chance. So I know our translation is really bad, strange, but let's just launch it. So he went against the advice and launched this badly translated game, and it still did well. And more importantly, I started looking at Japanese forums to see what users are saying about this game. And I found there are interesting threads by their fans of this new game saying, oh, look at this new farm game. It's very strange. Like all the animals are saying strange things. But it must be because they're animals. They don't speak Japanese. These are animals trying to say human language. That's why it's all strange. So somehow fans mistook our bad translation as a feature. And in fact, a lot of people started creating all kinds of internet threads to discuss the bad translation. Oh, this must mean this animal is trying to say this in Japanese. And people are having fun. So in the end, what happens, I finished my translation into proper Japanese and sent the file. And afterwards, I realized people are enjoying this strangeness. So I sent the memo to the team, throw out my translation. Keep with your bad translation because people think it's fun. So there's this kind of, and the lesson I actually learned is sometimes I think people in Japan, including me, are very conservative. Like we try to look for perfection. And as a result, we might tell the Chinese entrepreneurs, don't do this, don't do that. But sometimes, maybe if it's a regulatory thing, you should listen to advice, but maybe some of the advice we give you may be the wrong advice. And we discover by experimenting that the founder's way was actually the better way. So this is just one short lesson from us working with Chinese entrepreneurs.
Excellent. And how about Global Brains? Any example and funny stories about, well, anyway, I mean, suggestion on, because you are more focusing on Greater China, China companies. Any example share with, the barrier, in terms of the barriers when they try to get into Japan markets because of the culture shock and other stuff? Please, thank you.
Yeah. That reminds really East Asia story, Korean, Japanese, and Chinese. Yeah. In terms of Global Brain, we always talk about the PMF, the product market fit, when you enter a new market. In China, because the Chinese startup in China, we don't think too much about, for example, the compliance. For example, how to expand the sales network. So yeah, that's important, but it's not in the top priority. In many cases, people want to make their product perfect. For example, they try to adjust the size of their button. They try to perfect their conversion rate. So they change the steps when doing the registration or when they're doing whatever. But when you try to enter a new market, it's totally different story. Yeah, of course, make the product perfect is very important, and that's a very key point. But also, there are a whole bunch of new things we have to think about. I categorize the difficulties so into different categories. For example, B2C is kind of not that difficult. We got some really good examples. For example, the games. For example, the the e-commerce. We got successful example like Shein, like Temu, and we got successful example of like TikTok. That's one thing. But things getting a bit more difficult when you when you need a reseller or when you need a distributor. So as a Chinese startup, you go to Japan market, you try to find a reseller. In most cases, you got no response. Unless you are already famous and globally, but in most cases you got no response. But that's even the start. For example, for a Chinese startup, before you get your reseller, and there are other things like you want to open a bank account, then you cannot open a bank account because you got no track record in Japan.
That's actually hard for any foreigner, not just from China. Yes.
Yeah. So that's usually a very difficult part, and so that's a B2B or B2B2C. And there's one more thing, is like B2B. Like you want to access your enterprise customers directly. That's even more difficult. There are some somehow successful stories like the ZTE, like the Huawei. They got really they're getting really difficult right now. But before they got some successful stories. But that's very hard. So what we can do as VCs from Japan is we got all the connections, all the relationship with the big corporations. So on behalf of those big corporations, we choose the right partner and we put money into those startups and then help them to enter the Japan market, which we help them to clear a very important hurdle on that. So I think that's the advantage of us. But in general, it's not that easy when compared to our domestic market or the Southeast Asia market. Yeah.
Thank you. I would actually like to share some of my experience. Although I have a very little experience in Japan, but from my observation last week, because I think in Japan, people, they tend to value some useless functionalities. That's what I observed last week in Japan. So true. Yeah, for example, we are one of the early investors of Pudu Robotics, the delivery robots in Japan. Now, Pudu is being very successful in Japan.
Yeah, it's everywhere.
But I think the key for they are successful is the design of the robot. It's like a kitty shape. It's like cat shape robot, and it gets very popular in Japan.
It has nothing to do with technology.
Yeah, yeah, there's nothing to do with technology, but but that's what I call useless. And also, I noticed that there is a a robot called a Love Robot in Japan. LOVOT, yeah, Lovert, and it's also useless, but it's sold out in every shopping mall and the shopping center. That's what I realized. Maybe when you want to get into Japan market, you need to think deeply. You need to design your products more kawaii. You can put some more kawaii factors into your products, and also some mentally and with social connection.
Actually, I have a perfect story for you. So one of the brands, new brands from China that's done very well in Japan is Anker. They make those chargers and everything, right? So I knew actually. So Anker was selling very well on Amazon and other channels in Japan. But they were having struggle trying to expand their social media presence. And so they actually ended up working with this Twitter consultant that we know. And she was actually helping them with their Twitter and Instagram presence. And basically, the criticism that the Japanese market, that they, Anker, you're always showing phone and the charger. That's boring. Looks like you're selling something cheap. So she started creating a brand new marketing campaign for Anker. So you have like the very fashionable living room. There's other things, but there's also matching color Anker battery. So everything looked like more like a fashion magazine ad. And suddenly, Anker started penetrating into women, which was not as strong. Like it was usually initially it's people like me who buy Anker products because I just like their function. But now they have expanded the market into mass market, and I think this kind of feedback. Maybe if you're a product engineer in Shenzhen, you have no idea. So you need to find the right people who can give you advice, because changing a color is the easiest thing you can do. So they say they ended up having a more consumer-friendly packaging color for Japan market, and I think now their social media has triple-digit growth since then.
Yes, exactly. Local knowledge is needed. Right. Let's move to the third keyword. I would say is cooperation. And Mr. He, you must have a lot of experience by linking up, Chinese companies and also Japanese, because you work with some CVC and some big industrial leaders. So could you please share some example, cooperation between Japan and China in some startups or the portfolios you invested yet?
Yeah, sure. We got some good examples. Before that, I want to mention one thing is I was talking about the PMF, and that's mutual PMF, like yeah.
Yes, yes.
So when Chinese startup, so going overseas is a very hot word now. Many companies plan to go overseas, and a good portion of them think Japan is a very good choice for their first step. Yeah, and take service robot as an example. Chinese startups, we got really good advantages in technology and in design, in usabilities. That's why we see your portfolio, the Pututech. We see Pututech in many chain restaurants in Japan. But the acceptance of the Japan market for service robot from China is not that obvious. So in restaurant, maybe okay. In hotel, maybe okay. But there are also many service robot here in China working in office buildings. So when we're trying to put those robots into Japan's office buildings, we get like, we feel a high hurdle on that.
Security concern?
Yeah, like compliance. It's more like, how to say, there are some clients, they don't care. And there are some clients, they really care. But when it comes to the reseller think, there are some clients, they really reject on that. So the resellers, they think twice on how to deal with the China startup. So, so yeah, that's one theme. And we got some good examples, like for example, we got a portfolio. It's more like B2B2C. It's a smart retailing company. They help the retail chains, for example, the convenience stores, to open the, the unmanned, it's not unmanned, it's full automated convenience stores. So in that case, the rejection from the Japan society or Japan market is much less.
I see.
And
why?
Yeah, because office and retail is, I think the level, the data security level is somehow different. That's one theme. And another thing is, how much they can get into the system, like how much the Japanese vendors, the Japanese partner, they can customize, they can take control of the data. So for retail in the industry, it's not like the startup, the vendor, the China startup to provide the whole system. It's more like in Japan, they got a whole system. You as a vendor, you join the system. So the key part is not on your side, it's on the Japan side. Yeah. And also we got some example, like the company actually started in China, but they registered in maybe, let's say they have a VIE scheme. Yeah.
All right, that's good. And for Akio, because you are international, you are like a global investor. You have worked with a lot of entrepreneurs and founders all over the world. In terms of helping them to get into Japan and working as a partner in Japan, you have already given us like an example for gaming. And how about other areas or other examples you can share with in terms of cooperation? Yes.
So another collaboration that I've done, this was actually from Taiwan to Japan. So one of the largest music streaming platform in Taiwan is called KKBox. And they were trying to expand to Japan. And they're already in Taiwan, they're already working with the largest telecom, Chonghua Telecom, which was the largest distributor for them. But then going to Japan, they had a difficulty in foreign company. And in the end, we ended up actually working with KDDI, which is also actually Global Brain runs KDDI's CVC. But so KDDI in the end became the partner. And the founders told me it was the most painful partnership they've ever done because everything is slow, takes a long time, but it's pain. So I have to say, the pain comes first. But after you go through this, they became the most trusted partner of theirs. So now they have a very strong, profitable business in Japan, and KDDI introduced them to some of their ecosystem partners like JCOM, which is the largest cable TV company in Japan. So they're in the multiple channels. So this is actually, I think, an interesting lesson. This is not just for KKBox, but also I think companies coming from whether China or US into Japan. They always tell me, trying to create a business relationship with Japan takes time. Like, in China, you send a WeChat to a CEO, you get an answer right away, oh, let's do it. Never happens in Japan. In Japan, things go around in a lot slower cycles. So sometimes entrepreneurs might think they are not interested. But that's not always true. They're actually interested, just slow. So you have to have sometimes some patience. And it might help if you have a person who's like, person here who understands both culture to help you to bridge the culture. And then if you work with those companies and if they really like your product, you'll have a very dedicated long-term business partner. So Japan, I would say, is a slow cooking dish, right? Takes a long time to get warmed up. Once it's there, it can bring you a very healthy return as a business.
Totally agreed. I would say from valuable sharing from our two speakers, Japan market is like initially you have to spend longer time, you have to study harder to get into the market, but in long term you will get rewards. That's our practical experience from our portfolios and our speakers' experience. So right, time for lunch. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.